Well, howdy again everyone. So many new mirrorless camera lenses are coming out these days that it feels like a breath of fresh air to be covering one of Canon's digital SLR lenses again, the big, expensive and generally coveted Canon EF 85mm f1.4 IS USM L. Its price is $1,600 or about 1,400 British pounds. At the time of writing, it is the only image-stabilized f1.4 lens available for full-frame or APS-C cameras, I think. Quite an achievement for Canon, really. They do like showing off. Like other lenses for digital SLR cameras, it can also be adapted onto mirrorless cameras. This is your absolutely classic portrait lens, although 85mm is flexible enough for all kinds of photography, especially for getting nicely out of focus backgrounds and getting fast shutter speeds at f1.4. And 85mm is telephoto enough for image stabilization to be quite useful in getting sharper pictures with slower shutter speeds. Here's some footage with it turned off and now turned on. It's quiet and it does a very nice job. The picture isn't Rocksteady, but it's a huge improvement which will really help you to frame your shots better and get sharper images. Nice. Let's look at the build quality. As I mentioned, this lens is big and weighing in at almost a kilogram, about 2 pounds. It's pretty heavy too. Just look at all that glass. There are 14 glass elements inside. It's made of heavy-duty plastic and it's weather sealed, feeling nice and solid. The main control point is the focus ring. As you'd expect, it turns very smoothly and the lens has full-time manual focusing. The autofocus motor works very quickly, quietly and accurately. Its filter size is 77mm and it comes with a somewhat shallow lens hood. Overall, top marks for build quality there, although it really is quite a weight in your camera bag to carry around. Alright, image quality. We'll start by testing on a lower resolution full frame camera, my trusty old Canon 6D with its 20 megapixel sensor. At f1.4, the middle of the image is very sharp with good contrast. The corners are slightly less so, but still very good. f2 is very slightly sharper in the corners and f2.8 a little better again. It stays this sharp down to f8. f11 and f16 show hints of softness from the effects of diffraction. So on a 20 megapixel Canon 6D, it's a very sharp optic, although I did find Sigma's 85mm f1.4 art lens to be a tiny bit sharper. Let's fit it now onto a higher resolution full frame camera. Here I've adapted it onto a 42 megapixel Sony A7R II. At f1.4, the lens is really sharp in the middle, although some real purple fringing is visible here. The corners look a bit softer still, but not too bad. At f2, contrast is much clearer now in the corners, and in the middle, purple fringing is reduced. At f2.8 and f4, the purple fringing is finally gone. At f4, the image corners look pretty impressive and f5.6 gives near perfection. Once you stop down to f16 though, diffraction begins to kick in and the image starts to look softer. Overall, this Canon lens shows some slight limitations on a very high resolution sensor. Some purple fringing in the middle flares up, and I've also seen slightly sharper corners than this on other 85mm lenses, just slightly. Am I nitpicking here? Maybe. The image quality is still really good, but this is a lens that costs $1.5 grand. Finally, a 24 megapixel APS-C camera. At f1.4 in the middle, we see quite good sharpness, although contrast could be a little punchier, and there's a purple hint to contrasting edges again. The corners are a bit soft here. At f2, the corners look about the same, although the middle is much punchier now. At f2.8, the image is perfectly sharp in the middle, and the corners are clawing their way forward. At f4, they're still only good, but finally at f5.6, they look pretty nice. f8 is about the same. At f11, softness from diffraction begins to kick in. So on APS-C, it's a pretty average performance here for an 85mm lens really, good enough, but certainly nothing to rave about. Alright, let's look at vignetting and distortion on a full frame camera. The lens projects a very gentle pincushion distortion. You'd think that with the large size of the lens's front element, you would see reduced vignetting. Well, think again, as at f1.4 those corners are really dark. Stop down to f2 to push that darkness into the corners, and at f2.8 we see even illumination across the image frame. This lens can focus as closely as about 85 cm to your subject, about average for a lens in this class. Even on a 42 megapixel camera, the close-up image quality is quite sharp, although that purple fringing shows up again at f1.4. At f2 and then f2.8, the sharpness improves and the colour fringing ebbs away. How does this lens work against bright light? Again, nothing to write home about here. We see plenty of flaring when bright lights are in the frame. Finally, bokeh. Thankfully, this is a strength of the lens. In those out-of-focus backgrounds, its bokeh is reasonably soft nearly all the time. Not much to report here. Overall, the Canon EF 85mm f1.4 IS USM L is a slightly perplexing lens in some ways. Its image quality is very good, but also somewhat on the average side for an 85mm optic, which is a bit disappointing considering the lens's price point. For example, in my tests, the Sigma 85mm f1.4 Art was noticeably sharper, and other reviewers have noted this too. The lens's image stabilization is a big trump card, and its nice build quality certainly helps too, but it seems to me like Canon have gambled on offering image stabilization instead of the very best possible image quality. Now don't get me wrong, it's still a fantastic lens and it definitely comes recommended, but for its price, the very fussiest photographers might be left wanting just a bit more.